The transcript you are about to review remains classified under Level 7 security protocols, stamped with red ink and sealed within the archives of operations that never officially existed. I was a Mossad field operative, stationed in Tel Aviv, deployed into Jordan under directives marked uncompromising. Coordinates were withheld from even our closest allies. The assignment bore the codename Rising Lion, though whispered rumors suggested alternative labels buried in unrelated files. I submit this testimony not as confession, but as a final effort to recount what we encountered, before memory becomes contaminated. Operational context framed it as standard reconnaissance, a clandestine penetration across Jordanian terrain for intelligence gathering. We were trained for infiltration, evasion, survival, extraction. The dossier mentioned subterranean structures, perhaps military or abandoned research sites. At the time, such detail carried no weight beyond typical espionage necessities. I speak in the language of soldier reports, loadout weights, oxygen percentages, communication channels. I must, however, weave in anomalies that defy reason. These anomalies are neither metaphors nor exaggerations. They pressed upon us as tangibly as steel corridors and oppressive desert heat. The mission began with silence, not the silence of wilderness, but one engineered. Our radios hissed faintly, though no transmissions crossed the waves. Wind across desert stones vanished, replaced by a stillness heavy as a concrete vault pressing upon every lung. We advanced with suppressed carbines, optics 0 to 30 meters, hydration levels checked twice. Sand ground beneath boots in muted tones, unnatural, as though muffled by unseen hands. We were trained for deception. New here? Welcome to Intel Uncovered, where chilling military horror stories come alive. Hit subscribe and step into the shadows with us. Yet no doctrine prepared us for silence so utterly constructed. Our commander ordered precise intervals between us, 7 meters exact, no deviation. He treated the landscape as though an audience observed, waiting for errors. His eyes shifted frequently toward horizons stripped of movement. I noted this detail, dismissing it then, regretting dismissal now. At 1900 hours we reached the staging perimeter, a rocky depression shielding us from aerial reconnaissance. Shadows thickened across jagged cliffs, shadows that appeared to lengthen too quickly, stretching across sand like black ink spilled from broken containers. No clock registered acceleration, only the shadows. I have spoken too long already. This introduction must suffice for context. What follows is an honest recounting of events, though honesty itself fractures when environments fracture time. If my testimony falters, it is not deceit, but contamination. Memory here is no longer property of the self. Movement risked escalation. Each signal risked exposure. Mossad assessed the subterranean complex as potential conduit for weapons trafficking or covert nuclear experimentation. The stakes combined political fragility with military urgency, a volatile intersection demanding absolute discretion. Our presence carried risk of international rupture. Officially, Israel denied any deployment. Should we be captured, our existence would be erased, our names folded into empty graves. Failure threatened not only careers but geopolitical equilibrium. Yet success promised intelligence capable of shifting balances invisible to public discourse. Orders specified recovery of documentation, acquisition of samples, and photographic proof. Higher command sought clarity about rumors of joint research facilities, places where science and faith collided. The suggestion of radioactive anomalies filtered through earlier surveillance, prompting fears of uncontrolled experimentation. Nothing then hinted at metaphysical contamination. Each operative understood the cost. Intelligence missions in foreign states rarely offered forgiveness. We were bound by the principle of silence. No cries if wounded, no transmissions if compromised. The desert itself would swallow us, and denial would frame the official narrative within hours. Inside our sealed pouches we carried cyanide ampules, contingencies etched into training. Radios remained tuned to encrypted frequencies, but transmissions permitted only at predetermined intervals. Redundancy defined every plan, yet redundancy could not account for environmental phenomena, for distortions unmeasured by compasses or reconnaissance satellites. I recall our commander stating during final checks that the mission represented a fulcrum. He emphasized precision, restraint, and composure under duress. Yet his voice, steady as granite, faltered imperceptibly when briefing us on subterranean access points, as though he already knew the terrain concealed something else. The stakes were geopolitical, personal, and unknowable. On paper, the mission ensured national security. In reality, it summoned us toward corridors of stone and silence, where intelligence meant nothing, where maps dissolved, and where human resolve proved fragile. We entered Jordan not to fight an enemy, but to confront absence. Our commander, designated Arad, served 15 years across shadow conflicts from Beirut to Damascus. His dossier described him as precise, almost clinical in decision-making, a soldier who saw variables rather than lives. Yet beneath his discipline lingered fatigue, a tremor in his hands he thought concealed. The medic, Ramiel, carried not only medical proficiency, but a fascination with anthropology. He collected fragments of language during missions, phrases from border tribes and forgotten dialects. His scientific clarity anchored us, though behind his calm eyes flickered curiosity that sometimes bent toward dangerous interpretations of myth. Our demolitions expert, Shalev, balanced recklessness with technical brilliance. He loved his work with explosives, treating detonation as choreography. Many described him as laughter wrapped around calculation. He carried sketches of his daughter folded inside his vest, a fragile reminder that precision and chaos shared common ground. The communications specialist, Eitan, existed as quiet presence, lean and analytical. His fingers traced waveforms across paper margins during downtime, obsessed with patterns invisible to others. He rarely spoke more than necessary, yet when he did, words carried weight. Radios, signals, and silence obeyed his unspoken authority. Veteran operative Baruch functioned as our stabilizer. He was older, scarred, a survivor of campaigns long erased from records. He offered perspective through humor edged with melancholy. Baruch was the one who checked straps twice, who whispered reassurances when the desert stretched endless, who carried memory like shield. Each of us bore distinctive traits, but we carried shared burdens. The burden of secrecy, the burden of silence, the burden of never existing on any ledger. Bonds forged in clandestine service are both stronger and more fragile than family. One fracture, and the entire unit dissolves. We introduced ourselves that evening not through names but through rituals, adjusting scopes, checking hydration tubes, rebalancing packs. Each gesture reflected identity more than words. Mossad operatives learn early that names can be erased, but muscle memory, rituals, remain. Our unity formed through repeated patterns. I remember Ramiel's quiet hum while packing gauze rolls, a tune without melody yet strangely grounding. I remember Shalev tapping detonator casings like a drummer marking tempo. Eitan calibrated frequencies with mechanical devotion, while Arad's gaze never drifted from horizon. Baruch watched us with paternal half-smile. Personal details bled through regardless. Shalev's daughter had sent him a drawing of a lion, now folded into creases. Ramiel mentioned collecting fragments of ancient pottery once during leave. Baruch carried a silver lighter engraved with initials long erased by time. Such fragments tethered us. The team dynamic thrived on balance, precision versus risk, silence versus humor, logic versus intuition. Within clandestine operations, such balances mattered more than weaponry. We believed our mixture of discipline and experience rendered us indestructible. We had faced men, guns, borders. What we had not faced was silence alive. Had I known how those fragments of personality would distort under pressure, I might have etched them more carefully into memory. Now, when I recall them, shapes blur. The drawing of a lion no longer sits still on paper. It shifts, breathing in shadows. The mission briefing unfolded within a dimly lit hangar on the outskirts of Beersheba, sealed against outside interference. Fluorescent lamps hummed overhead, casting pale halos upon steel tables. Maps lay spread before us, marked with coordinates blacked out in previous versions, now exposed like veins on parchment. A senior officer delivered instructions with clipped precision, his tone devoid of flourish. He emphasized the subterranean objective, infiltration of a structure embedded beneath Jordanian rock strata. Entry was to be achieved through collapsed excavation shafts, documented by aerial surveillance yet absent from civilian geological records. He outlined layers of redundancy. Should radios fail, Eitan was to rely on burst transmissions using embedded encryption cycles. Should extraction be compromised, Baruch carried a secondary beacon. If all else failed, our orders required self-termination to prevent capture, leaving nothing for adversaries to exploit. Visuals displayed photographs of terrain, fractured plateaus, shifting sand dunes, occasional Bedouin trails. What unsettled us were blurred anomalies on the photographs, shadow-like distortions resembling figures yet impossibly elongated. The officer dismissed them as artifacts of exposure, though his eyes betrayed discomfort while uttering the explanation. Ramiel questioned potential environmental hazards, radiation foremost among them. The officer paused before responding, noting unverified sensor readings suggesting spikes but declining elaboration. His reluctance carried weight heavier than his words. Shalev smirked, claiming explosives behaved the same way under any sky. No one laughed. Deployment orders required absolute silence post-insertion. No unauthorized contact, no deviation from marked routes. Every contingency assumed hostile human presence, not metaphysical disruption. Yet each sentence of the briefing seemed to skirt around something absent, a gap in language. Silence framed the mission more than directives themselves. We were assigned standard gear, carbines with suppressors, night optics, hydration packs, climbing gear, demolition charges, portable oxygen canisters, each item catalogued with bureaucratic monotony. Yet when the officer handed us the oxygen units, his hands lingered unnaturally, as though he feared what air we would breathe. Departure aligned with twilight. A military transport carried us southward, vibration of engines masking unspoken apprehension. The cabin smelled of oil and iron. Outside, dunes stretched into endless waves. The commander sat motionless, eyes forward, while Baruch traced his lighter across his palm. Eitan calibrated his headset repeatedly despite flawless readings. His murmurs resembled prayers more than diagnostics. Ramiel inspected his medical kit with surgical devotion. Shalev leaned back, whistling tunelessly, though his fingers twitched upon imagined detonators. Each man's ritual deepened silence, layering it into something oppressive. When the transport halted near border coordinates, we disembarked into darkness. Night air pressed heavy, metallic upon the tongue. Stars above seemed distant, blurred. We adjusted packs, checked weapons, confirmed formations. The commander whispered one word: "Advance." It echoed unnaturally as though the desert walls repeated his command. From that moment onward, the mission ceased to resemble simulation. The desert no longer stretched empty, but contained presence, invisible, yet weighty. We advanced toward entry coordinates, believing we walked into a military installation. In truth, we approached a threshold carved by forces beyond intelligence comprehension. We began our advance under cover of moonlight that shimmered pale across the dunes. Sand shifted beneath boots like whispering currents. Our formation stretched deliberate. Commander forward, communications rear. Others staggered. Each breath within masks tasted metallic, as though desert air carried residue of machinery long buried. Navigation relied upon compasses and encrypted GPS units. Yet within the first kilometer, Eitan muttered that coordinates jittered, shifting eastward by increments impossible for satellites. The commander ordered reliance on compass bearing alone. Still, stars overhead appeared subtly displaced, unfamiliar constellations woven among known patterns. Shalev whispered jokes about walking across another planet. No one replied. Silence deepened, punctuated only by measured steps and faint hiss of hydration tubes. I felt a vibration beneath sand, faint tremors that might have been imagination. Baruch's eyes met mine. He had felt it too. The desert itself seemed to listen. Wind refused to rise, leaving dunes in frozen stillness. Every movement echoed longer than natural, as though sound refused to disperse. Boots striking stone produced hollow reverberations, returning seconds later like delayed signals. We adjusted formation tighter, instinctively resisting the expanding emptiness. Hours passed, marked not by watches but by breath. My chronometer displayed 19 minutes discrepancy against others. I reset it, yet drift increased. Eitan confirmed anomaly, insisting equipment functioned properly. The commander silenced discussion, though unease spread. Time fractured silently, each second stretching and folding like fragile fabric. At one point we reached an eroded ridge where rock formations jutted upward like skeletal fingers. Shadows clung unnaturally to stone, stretching against lunar illumination rather than with it. Ramiel muttered an Aramaic phrase, swiftly silenced by Commander's glare. His words hung, a forbidden acknowledgement of what we witnessed. Beyond ridge, terrain descended into dry basin. Sand there bore no tracks, yet grains formed spirals, geometric curves like glyphs sketched by invisible tools. Shalev approached, attempting to disturb patterns. Sand resisted movement, clinging to boots like static-charged dust. The commander ordered avoidance, though curiosity gnawed at every glance. We resumed progress, breath fogging faintly despite desert heat. Baruch murmured about temperature drop, fingers brushing frost along metal carbine. I confirmed condensation forming within mask valves. Our environment no longer obeyed natural thermodynamics. Silence thickened, layered with cold, pressing against us as though desert exhaled ancient breath. Eaton's radio emitted faint distortion, initially static, then fragments of voice repeating our names. The signal carried no origin. He cut transmission, adjusted frequencies, yet whispers persisted, intimate, echoing syllables familiar, yet detached. The commander ordered immediate blackout. Still, names continued faintly, vibrating within bone marrow. We reached designated entry zone near midnight by chronometer, though Moon appeared arrested, frozen in position. The shaft lay ahead, partially concealed beneath collapsed rock. Surrounding terrain bore fissures shaped like veins, pulsing faintly with luminescence. Ramiel whispered of bioluminescent minerals, though his voice betrayed disbelief. Descent preparation began. We checked oxygen regulators, ropes, anchors. Shalev tested charges for emergency clearance. Baruch inspected carabiners twice, his ritual steadying our breath. The commander recited operational code, though syllables trembled imperceptibly. As we secured ropes, fissures surrounding shaft brightened, casting pale glow across equipment. None commented. I clipped harness and leaned into void. Air rising from below carried scent metallic, electric, as though machinery still operated in unseen depths. My descent echoed with hollow resonance, ropes vibrating unnaturally. I whispered coordinates into recorder, though playback later revealed distorted tones replacing numbers. One by one, operatives descended. Each figure swallowed into shaft's throat, swallowed into silence broken only by breathing apparatus. Ropes disappeared into abyss deeper than aerial survey indicated. What should have been 20 meters stretched into more than 60. Our descent extended, time stretched alongside rope fibers. At final ledge we regrouped. Chamber below spread immense, walls carved with precision not attributable to natural erosion. Geometry impossible, angles converging then diverging, shapes collapsing into perspective defiance. Shalev muttered curse. Ramiel closed eyes. Eitan adjusted radio uselessly. The commander simply nodded, jaw tightened against disbelief. From that moment, insertion sequence ended. We no longer walked desert terrain but crossed threshold into architecture predating comprehension. Our footsteps reverberated across stone, overlapping strangely, producing echoes that did not belong to us. Entry was achieved, yet mission objective dissolved. What awaited us was not intelligence. The chamber spread outward like a cathedral stripped of faith. Walls shimmered with crystalline veins, faintly luminous, pulsing in rhythm, almost biological. Our headlamps illuminated glyphs etched across stone, inscriptions spiraling without center. None matched known languages. The air pressed heavy, metallic, thick with vibrations beneath hearing. Arad signaled advance. Formation shifted into diamond pattern, rifles angled outward. Each step rang hollow, reverberations continuing seconds longer than natural. Sound lingered unnaturally, folding upon itself until whispers emerged from echoes. I caught my own breath returning altered, syllables woven where none had been spoken. Corridors branched from chamber like arteries, each impossible in scale, dimensions warping perspective. Straight lines bent slightly when observed too long. Shalev muttered about architectural illusions, yet sweat glistened across his temples. Ramiel documented glyphs into notebook, though his hands shook. ink smearing across pages as though resisting capture. Eitan attempted communication check. Static flared, followed by rhythmic humming resembling heartbeats, mechanical yet organic. He removed headset instantly, eyes wide. No command needed. Silence resumed. Our radios were not malfunctioning, they were receiving. Frequencies aligned with architecture itself, vibrating messages beyond translation, messages embedded within stone. The air thickened. Oxygen meters displayed irregular fluctuations, levels oscillating between abundance and deprivation. Regulators hissed erratically, forcing us to monitor breath deliberately. I felt pressure against chest, not suffocation, but compression, as though atmosphere sought to merge with us. Baruch's exhalations came ragged, though he denied distress. Arad marked chosen path, the northern corridor, broad yet claustrophobic in sensation. Walls closed upon us, though measurements remained constant. Lamps flickered without fuel, shadows lengthening into forms independent of movement. At times, I glimpsed additional figures trailing behind, silhouettes uncounted. Each time I turned, absence greeted me. Flooring shifted texture, stone smoothed into metallic plates, brushed with corrosion impossible within desert geology. Footsteps produced resonance like struck chimes. Each sound vibrated teeth, filling skull with humming dread. Shalev attempted humor, yet voice cracked mid-sentence. Silence reclaimed space quickly, heavier than any order could enforce. We passed recesses resembling doorways sealed with fused stone. Each bore glyph clusters glowing faintly when approached. Ramiel extended gloved hand, glow intensified, symbols rearranging slightly, spiraling outward. Arad snapped for retreat from doorway. Yet Ramiel lingered half-second too long, later admitting he felt warmth almost heartbeat-like. Our lights began failing sequentially. Eitan's headlamp extinguished though batteries tested full. My beam flickered intermittently, each pulse revealing corridors' shifting angle. Straight became curved, walls breathing subtly, surfaces expanding and contracting. We pressed onward, clinging to Commander's voice, though his tone carried unease rarely betrayed in earlier operations. Temperature fluctuated. Patches of frost formed along metallic surfaces, crystallizing instantly before sublimating. Condensation gathered upon weapons. My optics fogged repeatedly despite sealed casing. Environment obeyed no continuity. Ramiel documented phenomena feverishly, yet I glimpsed fear behind his diligence. Knowledge here risked consuming him as surely as air itself. At one intersection we paused to establish bearings. Compass needles spun erratically, GPS dead. Arad ordered reliance on memory of angles, though geometry betrayed memory. Paths curved into themselves, spaces folding subtly. We advanced regardless, following markings left in chalk. Minutes later, chalk appeared ahead, not behind. Baruch whispered about déjà vu, about repeating steps. His lighter clicked nervously within his palm. I marked symbols etched freshly, though none of us carried tools for such carving. Glyphs appeared alive, adjusting orientation depending on observer. Looking away altered them, looking back restored different sequences entirely. We advanced deeper, air heavier with vibration, pressure building within ears. Low-frequency resonance hummed through marrow. Our equipment registered nothing audible, yet bodies shuddered involuntarily. Eitan pressed palms to temples, muttering fractured syllables. Baruch steadied him, whispering encouragement. Still, we all felt resonance burrow into thought, shaping inner silence. By time we reached second chamber, our perception fractured. Corridors stretched both short and long simultaneously. Shadows shifted without cause. The structure swallowed light, breath, time. Mission parameters no longer held meaning. We had entered an environment neither built nor abandoned, but sustained by something watching silently. We treated the second chamber as staging point, establishing perimeter with precision learned from countless infiltrations. Arad assigned arcs of fire. Shalev prepared emergency charges. Ramiel monitored vitals. Eitan adjusted frequencies despite futility. Rituals grounded us, transforming alien silence into something resembling order. Discipline shielded fragile nerves. Lighting equipment deployed revealed chamber edges far beyond initial perception. Boundaries retreated when illuminated, always extending further than before. We chalked markers onto stone, establishing reference points. Yet moments later, marks appeared smeared, relocated slightly as though walls absorbed them and released altered echoes of intent. Baruch suggested ration check. We inventoried supplies meticulously, counting hydration packs and oxygen reserves. Numbers tallied correctly, yet I recall unease. Packs felt lighter, canisters exhaled with faint irregularity. Ramiel dismissed it as perception distortion. Still, I watched condensation form despite desert location above. We attempted standard mapping procedures. Eitan logged structural sketches while I photographed glyphs. Lenses captured distortions, images blurred, spirals elongated unnaturally. When printed later, photographs revealed symbols glowing faintly, though no light registered during capture. Cameras recorded what eyes could not, embedding anomalies within chemical emulsion itself. Normal operations demanded reconnaissance of branching corridors. Arad divided responsibilities. Shalev and I swept left passage, Baruch and Ramiel right, while Eitan monitored central hub. Movements conducted with precision, weapons ready, lights sweeping arcs. Each step performed like training exercise, routine concealing unease buried beneath calculated breathing. Our passage revealed alcoves resembling laboratories or archives. Metallic tables fused with stone, surfaces carved by both tool and erosion. Instruments rusted, unrecognizable, scattered like offerings abandoned. Ramiel speculated joint research once occurred here. Shalev scoffed, muttering about nightmares built from architects high on fear. We regrouped, sharing findings quietly. No active power sources detected, no movement confirmed. Yet each voice carried strain. We spoke less, not from discipline, but from fear words might awaken resonance humming within walls. Silence became refuge, though silence here never belonged solely to us. Arad authorized limited rest cycle. We secured chamber perimeter, rotating watch every 30 minutes. Lying upon metallic floor, I felt vibration beneath spine, faint pulse synchronized with heartbeat. I resisted urge to shift position. Instead, I stared upward where shadows crossed beams unpredictably. During my watch, I counted echoes. Every fifth step within corridor beyond perimeter returned late, delayed unnaturally. I logged detail into recorder, though later playback replaced description with faint humming. I attempted again, but each recording altered, translating observation into incomprehensible tones. Memory itself resisted preservation. Despite anomalies, operations proceeded within framework. We conducted reconnaissance, documented symbols, maintained gear. Discipline remained mask against dread. At this stage, nothing openly threatened us. Yet environment encroached subtly, bending perception, bleeding into instruments. Normalcy here was illusion, a fragile construct stretched across foundations not built for men. It began subtly, during what should have been routine perimeter sweep. Baruch reported faint movement along southern corridor, a shadow shifting against wall. When we converged, nothing stood visible, yet air retained disturbance, like ripples upon still water after stone vanishes. We marked location, unsettled. Minutes later, Eitan's receiver activated spontaneously. Not static, not voice, but rhythmic tapping. Precise intervals, mechanical in cadence, yet strangely organic. He muted headset instantly, but tapping continued faintly through chamber itself, resonating within metal tables. We froze, listening, unable to identify source. Ramiel insisted on analyzing pulse with stethoscope pressed against wall. His eyes widened. He described hearing multiple heartbeats overlapping, mismatched, impossible. Commander silenced him sharply, forbidding further comment. Yet silence already fractured. Each of us strained ears, convinced footsteps advanced faintly from corridors yet never appeared. Our lights flickered simultaneously, synchronized failure lasting seconds. In that darkness, I swear outlines emerged. Elongated figures leaning from walls, limbs stretching wrong. When lamps restored, only glyphs remained, glowing faintly brighter. Shalev cursed loudly, sound reverberating, swallowed instantly as though walls consumed language greedily. Arad ordered strict reformation, weapons ready. He spoke calm, yet tone lacked conviction. We swept corridors methodically, clearing angles, checking alcoves. No hostiles, no tracks. Yet equipment logged environmental shifts. Pressure rising, temperature plummeting 5 degrees in minutes. Sensors displayed irregular oxygen fluctuations again, regulators hissing uncontrollably. When Baruch attempted to mark floor with chalk, line refused permanence. Powder dispersed instantly, scattering into geometric spirals. His hand shook. He drew again, but marking shifted, symbols forming without his control. We pulled him back. Chalk snapped in half, fragment vanishing into thin air, and the disturbance escalated with auditory intrusion. Voices began repeating our names faintly, carried within echoes. At first mine, then Shalev's, then all. Each voice matched perfectly, timbre indistinguishable from reality. I shouted denial into corridor, but echo returned, phrase reversed, syllables inverted, comprehensible yet foreign. Ramiel swore he saw movement beyond sealed doorway, pale hands pressing outward, fingers splayed against stone before retreating. No imprint remained. His calm facade cracked briefly, though he scribbled description with frantic speed. Glyphs upon door brightened afterward, pulsing in cadence with his rapid heartbeat. We regrouped at central chamber, shaken but controlled. First disturbance recorded, yet rationality strained. Shadows moved without light. Voices spoke without source. Markings shifted without hand. Commander declared continuation, insisting anomalies remained psychological. But silence afterward pressed heavier, each of us realizing environment now responded intentionally. The corridors narrowed as we advanced, walls pressing closer though measurements remained unchanged. My shoulder brushed stone that felt warm, pulsing faintly like flesh. Shalev spat curse, muttering about walking inside veins. His laughter sounded hollow, forced, swallowed quickly by silence thicker than steel doors. Itan attempted recalibration of compass but needle twisted erratically, spinning before freezing backward. He muttered fragmented numbers, claiming coordinates repeated themselves in cycles. When pressed, he could not recall exact figures. His notebook contained scribbles overlapping, lines written upon lines until symbols became unrecognizable. Shadows began separating from bodies. At first subtle, elongated shapes stretching seconds longer than steps. Then clearer. Outlines lingering behind, moving fractionally delayed, repeating gestures once we had stopped. Baruch whispered prayer, unheard by Commander. But silence afterward felt heavier, as though prayer itself offended environment. We entered chamber littered with metallic debris. Objects resembled tools, twisted beyond recognition, surfaces corroded yet humming faintly when touched. Ramiel warned against contact, but Shalev insisted, brushing glove against fragment. Static sparked instantly, glove blackened, smell of ozone overwhelming. He cursed, shaking hand, though burn vanished immediately afterward. Arad ordered immediate withdrawal from debris. Yet corridor behind had shifted, opening into unfamiliar slope descending further. Chalk markers absent, despite certainty of placement. GPS dead, compass inverted. Our path forward had become only path possible. Reluctantly, we advanced deeper, silence punctuated by rhythmic vibrations echoing heartbeat. Temperature plummeted suddenly. Frost gathered along weapons, breath crystallizing midair. My optics fogged repeatedly, clearing only with violent shaking. Ramiel recorded phenomena meticulously, though handwriting devolved into jagged strokes. He whispered theories, thermodynamic collapse, localized entropy reversal, before trailing into silence, staring at glyphs glowing beneath frost with unsettling fascination. Auditory distortions intensified. Voices now overlapped, layered in harmonies impossible for human throats. They called names, but also phrases. Fragments of orders, fragments of prayers, fragments of languages unknown, yet comprehensible in marrow. Itan clutched headset, insisting signals carried instructions, though his words fragmented into static mid-sentence. We pressed onward into cavernous hall. Ceiling stretched beyond lamps, swallowed in darkness. Glyphs climbed walls, spiraling upward, alive with dim glow. They pulsed rhythmically with our heartbeats, or perhaps our heartbeats adjusted unconsciously to them. I felt chest tighten, compelled into synchrony with stone breathing. Sudden movement shattered formation. A figure, pale and elongated, darted across corridor mouth. Rifles raised instantly, safeties disengaged. Yet when light struck, corridor lay empty. Floor bore footprints, elongated, three-toed, pressed deep into stone. Not dust, not illusion. Physical. Commander ordered silence, though his voice trembled unmistakably. Baruch reached for lighter, flicking flame against darkness. For a brief moment, we saw dozens of figures beyond walls, pressed like insects beneath glass, watching silently. Flame sputtered instantly, extinguished by invisible force. Baruch's hands shook violently, lighter clattering across floor before vanishing into shadow entirely. The escalation left us fractured but moving. Rational explanations collapsed. Illusions, fatigue, gases, none sufficed. Shadows moved independently, walls absorbed markings, equipment betrayed us. Commander's orders kept legs advancing, yet eyes betrayed fear. We no longer explored abandoned structure. We trespassed against something ancient, watching with patient indifference. The first true contact arrived without warning, as if walls themselves decided to reveal intention. We entered a circular chamber, air dense with metallic tang. Glyphs spiraled floorward, converging on central depression. Within that hollow liquid shimmered, black yet reflective, surface trembling without wind or touch. Arad signaled halt. We formed perimeter, rifles trained. The liquid rippled suddenly, though no impact struck. From its surface rose a figure, humanoid in outline yet impossibly thin, limbs bending opposite direction, face smooth and featureless. It glowed faintly, pale against darkness, shape resisting comprehension. Eitan whispered fragments of static, headset untouched, words tumbling involuntarily. He claimed figure spoke in frequencies beneath thought. His eyes rolled upward briefly before Baruch steadied him. The entity tilted head, though it possessed no face. Movement conveyed intent, as though curiosity pulsed through air. Shalev raised rifle, finger tightening trigger. Arad barked restraint instantly, command sharp but desperate. For a moment, we froze between instinct and obedience. The entity leaned forward, limbs elongating toward us unnaturally. Floor groaned beneath weightless step. Each glyph surrounding depression pulsed in synchrony, heartbeat rhythm overwhelming. Ramiel stepped forward, ignoring Arad's command. He whispered words not Hebrew, not Arabic, but something older. His notebook trembled in hands, pages fluttering despite absence of wind. The entity's head cocked further, as though recognizing language. Its limbs shortened abruptly, shape condensing, light dimming. I raised optics, capturing frame. Lens shattered instantly, glass cracking outward from within. My hands shook uncontrollably. Photographs were forbidden. Memory itself protested capture. I dropped camera, weapon raised instead, though I doubted bullets meant relevance here. Entity's body shimmered, splitting into afterimages like overlapping reflections. Eitan collapsed suddenly, convulsing violently. His radio emitted shrill tone, frequencies shifting rapidly. From static emerged our voices, recorded and layered, screaming words none of us spoke. We held him down, Ramiel attempting restraint, but his veins glowed faintly beneath skin. Pulses synchronized with glyph illumination. Entity extended limb toward him. Air thickened, pressing against lungs. Oxygen meters flatlined briefly, regulators hissing dangerously. I gasped metallic breath, chest compressed as though entire chamber inhaled collectively. Baruch shouted curse, firing round instinctively. Bullet struck wall, ricochet muted, vanishing into shadow without impact. The entity recoiled slightly, not from wound but sound. Its body fractured briefly, pieces shimmering like broken mirror before reassembling. It emitted no cry, only vibration that rattled teeth. Our bones hummed painfully. Ramiel shouted words again, frantic, syllables older than his knowledge. Entity stilled. Arad seized opportunity, ordering withdrawal. We dragged Eitan upright, though his eyes remained unfocused, mouth whispering static-laced syllables. Glyphs around depression dimmed gradually. Entity receded, limbs folding into liquid surface. Ripples faded unnaturally quickly, as though water consumed itself. Silence returned heavy, oppressive, worse than sound. We retreated down corridor, breaths ragged. Nobody spoke until distance widened. Arad halted us, demanding control. His voice cracked slightly, but authority remained. He declared encounter non-hostile, but warned against provocation. Still, fear lingered. We had seen something beyond human taxonomy, and it had seen us. Eitan recovered partially, though voice remained distorted, syllables fractured. He wrote messages instead, claiming entity imprinted upon him. Words described frequencies humming within marrow, instructions impossible to ignore. His handwriting jittered, symbols resembling glyphs we had recorded earlier. We read them silently, refusing acknowledgement. Shalev muttered we should destroy chamber entirely. His hands caressed detonators compulsively. Arad silenced him, insisting objective remained intelligence, not eradication. Baruch stared into darkness, eyes haunted. I recorded silently, though memory already felt unreliable, shifting as though entity rewrote sequence each time I recalled details. That encounter marked threshold. Before, anomalies unsettled. After, fear became certainty. We were not alone within architecture. Intelligence collection had collapsed into survival. Yet even survival felt conditional, permitted at whim of something indifferent. The first direct encounter concluded, but consequences lingered within marrow, whispering relentlessly. Eitan's condition worsened quickly. His speech dissolved into static bursts, voice modulating between mechanical tones and fractured syllables. Sometimes his words repeated ours before we spoke them, predicting dialogue seconds early. Arad restrained him with cable ties, though his eyes burned with strange awareness, reflecting faint glyph luminescence. Ramiel examined him with stethoscope, then paled visibly. He whispered of dual rhythms, one heartbeat human, another mechanical, out of phase. He admitted confusion, unable to categorize sounds. His hands trembled as he withdrew. Knowledge, once his anchor, became unstable ground beneath every explanation attempted. Meanwhile, shadows no longer obeyed boundaries. They detached fully, wandering across walls independently. At times, my own silhouette lingered after movement, continuing action moments delayed. Once I turned and saw Baruch's shadow still aiming rifle, though he had already lowered weapon. Illusion felt tactile. Shalev began muttering incessantly. His detonators fascinated him beyond control. He tapped them rhythmically against helmet, whispering equations of blast radius. His humor vanished, replaced by fixation. When confronted, he shouted corridors demanded release. Architecture desired detonation. Arad restrained him sharply, threat of force silencing manic insistence temporarily. We advanced deeper despite fractures. Commander believed retreat impossible. Shafts shifted, chalk erased, paths folding into themselves. Each corridor extended infinitely, until suddenly ending in walls fused like scar tissue. Time disobeyed completely. Watches now differed by hours. Hunger came irregularly, thirst constant, perception unreliable. The architecture itself evolved. Surfaces shimmered, flowing like liquid stone. Angles twisted subtly when unobserved. Once, doorway behind us sealed silently, glyphs knitting over entrance. Panic surged until Shalev threatened detonation, upon which glyphs receded reluctantly, passage reopening. The structure responded, alive, negotiating with our impulses. Ramiel's fascination deepened dangerously. He began tracing glyphs with bare hands, murmuring translations forming without evidence. He claimed symbols described anatomy of worlds, organs of creation. His notebook overflowed with sketches resembling both nerves and constellations. Commander attempted confiscation, but Ramiel resisted, eyes wild, obsession eclipsing duty. Eitan's body convulsed sporadically, each episode synchronized with radio interference. His pupils dilated until nearly black. He whispered coordinates none of us recognized, urging descent further. When questioned, he replied in tones alternating human and electronic. His voice carried not his will but architecture's resonance. Baruch remained anchor, though strain showed. He comforted us, but his lighter no longer sparked flame. He flicked it repeatedly, muttering prayers against darkness. Once, in flicker of malfunctioning lamp, I saw dozens of lighter flames ignite within walls, reflections without source extinguished instantly. Arad struggled to maintain command veneer. His orders carried authority, but hesitation punctuated syllables. He began staring longer into shadows, jaw clenched as though resisting internal dialogue. Once, I caught him whispering name of his daughter into silence, then stiffening, realizing name returned softly from corridor. Environment pressed harder. Air grew denser, tasting of copper. Oxygen meters cycled between extremes. Breathing became labor, lungs heavy. Regulators hissed frantically. Some breaths felt borrowed, as though air belonged elsewhere. Ramiel claimed molecules themselves resonated, vibrating with unseen language. His words frightened more than silence ever had. We attempted rest again. Sleep offered no refuge. Dreams collapsed into waking hallucinations. Corridors bending endlessly. Figures crouching upon chests, whispering forgotten names. When I awoke, I discovered nails dug into palms deeply, though no blood surfaced. Baruch confessed he dreamt memories not his own, centuries old. Equipment degraded. Optics fractured spontaneously, ammunition corroded visibly, water tasting metallic. Shalev laughed bitterly, claiming we carried relics into relic. His laughter echoed unnaturally, duplicating until chamber overflowed with hollow sound. We silenced him forcefully, fear his madness might trigger charges prematurely, collapsing sanctuary into tomb. The structure introduced new anomalies deliberately, glyphs rearranged before eyes, displaying forms mimicking Hebrew letters then dissolving. Echoes predicted movement seconds early. Once, corridor ceiling wept liquid resembling mercury, droplets floating before reversing upward. None touched surface, yet droplets mirrored our faces, distorted, mouths moving independently. Rahmiel collapsed during documentation, clutching head, crying languages unrecognizable yet familiar. His notebook now filled itself, glyphs appearing without ink. He swore unseen hands guided writing. Pages tore themselves free, fluttering like wings across floor before vanishing into cracks. We dragged him onward, though resistance weakened body. Eaton began broadcasting involuntarily. His chest vibrated with low hum, audible without equipment. Radios picked up transmissions identical to sound. Messages replayed fragments of our speech days earlier. Temporal collapse manifested through him. Arad considered euthanasia, but hesitation prevailed. None of us ready to bear consequence. Shalev eventually broke restraint, placing charge against wall unbidden. He declared it demanded release. Arad tackled him violently, wresting detonator free. Glyphs flared instantly, responding to attempted violence. Corridor shook violently, dust raining. Then stillness returned, heavier, suffocating. Structure punished impulse yet allowed survival. For now. Baruch gathered us, whispering stories of old missions, forcing smiles. His voice steadied rhythm, human anchor amid distortion. Yet his stories faltered halfway, details erased. He would pause, confused, claiming memory slipped. Our past dissolved like walls around us, erased deliberately, leaving only present terror. By then, each of us altered irreversibly. Ramiel no longer trusted his own knowledge, equations scrambled. Shalev's obsession grew parasitic. Eitan transformed into conduit. Arad fractured between command and despair. Baruch clung to stories dissolving beneath him. And I, recorder, wondered if testimony belonged to me anymore. The supernatural escalation reached zenith when chamber ahead revealed not architecture, but horizon, an impossible landscape stretching beneath stone, stars swirling wrong, colors unpermitted. We stepped forward hesitantly, realization dawning. We had not descended into structure. Structure itself descended into us, rewriting flesh and thought alike. The horizon chamber unfolded like sky imprisoned underground. Stars rotated in spirals, constellations rearranging violently. Ground beneath shimmered translucent layers of stone interlaced with veins of light. Each step echoed endlessly, reverberations returning minutes later. We had crossed threshold into place neither natural nor fabricated, something alive. Eitan convulsed violently, collapsing. His body arched upward, mouth wide, emitting static that grew unbearable. Radios ignited spontaneously, broadcasting identical tone. Symbols across ground pulsed in synchrony. From horizon's edge, figures emerged. Scores of pale silhouettes elongated, limbs jointed backward, faces blank mirrors reflecting distorted versions of ourselves. Arad ordered defensive line. Rifles raised, safeties disengaged. Shadows detached entirely, advancing independently. Fire erupted, suppressed bursts streaking into figures. Bullets dissolved upon impact, metal liquefying mid-air, vanishing before contact. Echoes of gunfire continued long after. Figures paused briefly, then advanced again, indifferent to physics, indifferent to intent. Shalev screamed, hurling detonator charge against advancing shapes. Explosion bloomed, flame erupting impossibly silent. Instead of sound, chamber filled with luminous flowers, blossoms expanding in slow motion, petals dissolving into glyphs. We staggered back, blinded by beauty unnatural. When light faded, figures remained untouched, closer, almost curious. Ramiel shouted incantations he could not have known, syllables resonant, vibrating marrow. Glyphs beneath feet blazed brightly, responding to his voice. Figures halted momentarily, tilting heads collectively, their movements synchronized perfectly, like puppets bound by single thought. Ramiel trembled, continuing chant until blood spilled from nostrils uncontrolled. Arad seized him, silencing words. Instantly glyphs dimmed, figures resumed advance. Static from Aitan's throat deepened into chords, harmonics splitting chamber apart. Ceiling fractured, revealing further sky, impossible depth layered infinitely downward. Stars bled colors unseen cascading into ground. We felt gravity lurch, dragging bodies toward abyss. Baruch anchored rope instinctively, driving piton into translucent floor. Yet floor flexed like skin, absorbing steel before returning intact. Rope slipped uselessly. His lighter ignited finally, flame unnatural blue. Figures recoiled fractionally, hissing silent vibration. Flame flickered across chamber, casting hundreds of shadows not ours. We formed desperate circle, weapons raised though futile. Each figure extended limb, pointing simultaneously. Pressure crushed chests, oxygen meters flatlined again. Breathing became molten effort. My vision blackened at edges, but within static I heard whisper, not command, not threat, invitation. Entities sought recognition, not annihilation. Shalev broke first, sprinting toward them screaming. He carried remaining charges strapped, detonators primed. His body blurred as he reached their line, swallowed instantly. No explosion, only silence, then eruption of thousands of tiny lights rising like fireflies, spiraling upward until absorbed by stars above. Ramiel collapsed, shrieking symbols written across floor with bloodied fingers. Glyphs erupted in radiant cascade, illuminating chamber entirely. For brief instant, we saw truth. Architecture infinite, layered upon itself. Corridors fractal, extending beyond universe. Then light dimmed. Ramiel lay still, notebook clutched, eyes open yet unseeing. Figures halted again, withdrawing slowly. They retreated into horizon, vanishing as though never existing. Silence replaced them, heavy, crushing. Only Aitan's static remained, subsiding into weak hum. Chamber's sky folded upon itself, closing fractures. Stars faded until only stone ceiling returned, oppressive, ordinary, yet wrong. Arad forced regroup. Survivors staggered. Myself, Arad, Baruch, Ramiel barely breathing, Aitan comatose yet humming. Shalev gone entirely. Mission objective meaningless. Commander whispered single order. Escape. His voice trembled, edges fractured, yet clarity remained. We turned from horizon, stumbling blindly through corridors shifting endlessly, desperate for any exit. As we departed, glyphs across walls dimmed sequentially, extinguishing like dying embers. Each step heavier than last, each corridor longer, folding time again. We carried wounds not of flesh, but of perception. First contact concluded not in battle, but in revelation. Humanity irrelevant, tolerated briefly. Our retreat through corridors became descent into distortion. Time fractured more violently. Watches diverged by hours, steps repeated, Conversations replayed seconds later. We staggered against stone walls shifting like waves. Arad shouted orders repeatedly, his voice overlapping itself, echoing before spoken. Space rejected sequence, rejecting our presence entirely. Ramiel collapsed frequently, glyphs carved into his skin as though etched from within. He mumbled equations blending anatomy with constellations, eyes unfocused. We dragged him, unwilling to abandon comrade, though his words carried resonance unnerving, almost instructive. Each syllable vibrated corridors, walls flexing subtly, acknowledging his madness. Eitan floated between consciousness and trance. His voice emitted static harmonics, guiding path unintentionally. When his body leaned left, corridors opened there. When right, walls sealed. Commander followed his convulsions reluctantly, muttering about trusting possessed instrument. Yet alternative meant endless circles, perpetual entrapment within shifting labyrinth alive. Barak maintained steady presence, though eyes hollow. He whispered calming words, forcing rhythm into chaos. His lighter sparked randomly, each flame revealing fleeting figures within walls, faces, limbs, eyes watching. We pressed onward regardless. Flame became both compass and warning, illuminating reality peeling away in layers. We reached shaft of origin, though depth altered impossibly. Rope extended endlessly downward. Looking up revealed desert sky distorted, stars swirling unnaturally. Arad cursed, debating ascent versus alternate passage. Suddenly, Aitan's static grew shrill, pointing downward. Without choice, we descended, steps elongating, seconds collapsing into hours. When boots struck sand again, disorientation overwhelmed. Watches displayed a lapse time of 14 hours underground. Surface reconnaissance confirmed only 20 minutes passed since entry. Sun remained nearly identical in sky. Shadows misaligned, stretching opposite direction. Air metallic, vibrating faintly, tasting wrong upon every breath inhaled desperately. Desert itself warped subtly. Dunes colored with hues unseen. Violet metallic, silver green. Footprints we left previously vanished instantly, erased as though sand consumed history. Baruch exhaled slowly, muttering prayer fractured mid-sentence. His lighter sparked, revealing desert horizon flickering like mirage, landscape folding inward upon itself unnaturally. We attempted radio contact. No response from command. Static answered, repeating our own transmissions delayed by hours. Voices replayed with distortion, as though environment rehearsed memory. Commander silenced devices, fear expressionless. He whispered only extraction point remained priority, though his tone hollow, devoid of conviction once unbreakable. Journey outward accelerated dread. Shadows fell impossibly, stretching north at sunrise, then shifting west instantly. Sun wavered, doubled briefly before recombining. Air pressure oscillated, ears popping repeatedly. Ramiel whispered about being beneath sky, not within it. Words disorienting yet strangely accurate. Each step forward felt sideways into unreality. We reached extraction ridge where transport awaited. Vehicle shimmered strangely, outlines unstable. Pilot saluted calmly, expression unnervingly blank. No urgency, no surprise. Arid exchanged signals mechanically, forcing us aboard. Engines ignited without turbulence, ascent unnaturally smooth. I stared backward. Horizon glitched, dunes looping like broken reel projection. During flight, silence dominated. None spoke except Aitan, humming faint static through clenched teeth. Ramiel muttered fragments of anatomy merging with stars. Baruch clutched lighter obsessively, flame extinguished permanently. Arad stared ahead, features carved in stone, unyielding, yet eyes betrayed despair hidden beneath facade of command. When we crossed border, instruments calibrated again. Time synchronized, geography stabilized, yet memory carried fracture irreparable. We had escaped environment physically, but fragments of it remained stitched into marrow, carved into thought. Mission successful only in survival. Yet survival itself had become altered, meaning corrupted irreversibly. Alterations revealed themselves gradually. First was Ramiel. During debrief transit, his right arm vanished cleanly at elbow, as though cut by dimensionless blade. No blood, no wound, simply absence. He stared expressionless, whispering it belonged elsewhere now. Medical kit useless. Nothing remained to suture. Nothing remained human. Eitan's voice dissolved entirely. He opened mouth, emitting only static bursts, tones oscillating mechanically. Sometimes chords resembled speech, sometimes screams. He scrawled on paper, words fractured, symbols resembling glyphs. Communication impossible beyond fragments. His body remained intact, but voice replaced permanently. Man converted into conduit, flesh overshadowed by resonance. Ramiel's knowledge twisted dangerously. He spoke confidently of procedures yet mixed centuries of medicine. He prescribed bloodletting for dehydration, antibiotics for fractured bones, sutures of silk for metaphysical wounds. His notes contained diagrams spanning human, animal, celestial anatomies. Science unraveled, replaced by encyclopedia stitched from incompatible epochs. Baruch appeared spared at first. He smiled faintly, whispered jokes, yet interrogation revealed memory erased. He insisted facility underground empty, corridors barren. When pressed, he described silence and dust. No anomalies. His mind rewritten deliberately, transformed into vessel of denial. He could not remember horror even witnessed. Shalev absent, absorbed into chamber, explosion prevented. His name erased from records before return. Officially, team deployed without him. His daughter's drawing never referenced. Yet I recall faintly Lion's outline shifting within notebook margins, perhaps waiting, perhaps observing silently through folds of perception. Arid concealed fracture beneath command discipline, yet I saw his hands tremble, voice cracking privately. His gaze lingered upon shadows, measuring their independence. He avoided mirrors, avoided his daughter's name. Though his memory intact, I sensed environment embedded within him, whispering relentlessly, patient infection beyond removal. My own alteration subtle, testimony itself warps, words transcribed rearrange upon review, sentences twist into lies without consent, attempting description produces distortion, phrases rewriting themselves. Even now recording feels untrustworthy. I fear my language no longer mine but theirs, borrowed momentarily, filtering truth through deception built into script. We returned survivors physically, yet none whole. Limb missing, voice mechanical, knowledge scrambled, memory erased, will fractured. We were no longer operatives, but artifacts. Mission consumed humanity, returned us partially. Governments will catalog outcomes clinically, but essence irretrievable. We became living archives of environment's indifference, alterations irreversible. No medicine restored Ramiel's arm, no therapy returned Eitan's voice, no logic untangled Ramiel's centuries of confusion. Baruch laughed daily yet never recalled truth. Arad endured command but with haunted stillness. And I, recorder, bear silence that shapes testimony into something other than memory. Extraction proceeded too smoothly. Vehicles awaited, personnel expressionless, medical staff disturbingly calm. No urgency, no surprise at our conditions. Ramiel without arm, Eitan speaking static. Yet officers behaved as though expecting outcomes precisely, their composure colder than desert night, rehearsed indifference masking something deeper, complicity. Debrief chamber sterile, white walls humming faint electricity. Questions delivered clinically, voices monotone. We responded truthfully at first, describing corridors, glyphs, figures. Yet transcripts replayed afterward showed different content entirely. Words rewritten mid-sentence, replaced by sanitized versions. I swore description of horizon, but record preserved only empty chamber. Whenever I attempted correction, my mouth twisted, language rearranging. I meant to say entity emerged, but words emerged as dust undisturbed. Notes I wrote transformed upon review, symbols realigned, sentences inverted. Suppression was not only bureaucratic, it lived within us, rewriting testimony involuntarily, enforcing silence insidiously. Ramiel confined immediately. Doctors documented phantom limb phenomenon, ignoring absent flesh. They collected his notebooks, pages now filled with impossible anatomy, files sealed. He vanished from active roster, reassigned supposedly to research. I never saw him again, though whispers mentioned his voice chanting in subterranean archives. Aton treated as equipment, not man. Technicians surrounded him, recording static from throat. They claimed frequency valuable for signal intelligence. He emitted tones endlessly, eyes distant. Eventually transferred to division unknown. Rumor whispered his body strapped to antenna arrays, voice broadcast nightly into silence beyond atmosphere. Baruch reassigned abruptly. Official file labeled him unfit for field duty, memory gaps rendering him liability. He smiled serenely, unaware of erasure. They placed him into administrative post, desk drowning in meaningless paperwork. His laughter remained, but truth within him extinguished permanently, replaced by fabricated emptiness. Arad maintained command exterior. Debrief declared him competent, yet I saw his eyes tremble during questions, pupils dilated, focus fractured. They reassigned him to intelligence oversight, desk-bound, never again field. His reports clinical, sanitized. Perhaps he welcomed distance. Perhaps he feared shadows followed wherever he went. My own debrief left me fractured. Officers nodded at every word, recording transcripts already altered. They asked nothing of anomalies. Instead, they pressed repeatedly. Did you encounter opposition? I answered truthfully, yes, but not human. Their transcripts preserved only no opposition encountered. Reality collapsed into bureaucracy seamlessly, documents sealed within non-existent archives, classification buried deeper than nuclear projects. Our mission name erased, replaced by hollow label. Shalev excised entirely, never existed. Survivors repurposed, altered into tools fitting anomalies. Files marked Rising Lion vanished from official ledgers, absorbed into black chambers accessible to none. When I spoke afterward, even privately, truth twisted. To friend I attempted, we saw corridors alive. Instead, words emerged. Facility collapsed. Nothing inside. Suppression embedded not only institutionally, but neurologically. Language itself colonized, reshaped. We became vessels of silence, prisoners within altered tongues, incapable of full confession. Suppression succeeded flawlessly. Public never learned. Allies denied knowledge. Only fragments remained, scattered among us altered survivors. Governments perfected denial not through censorship, but through rewriting perception. They need not silence us by force. We silenced ourselves unwittingly, language betraying us before truth could surface. I write this testimony clandestinely, scratching words repeatedly until distortion yields fragments. Perhaps some meaning escapes corruption, perhaps not. But official records sealed, archived in places unacknowledged. Rising Lion exists only as echo now. Echo corrupted, echo repeating, echo erasing. We remain alive, but not remembered. I sit now with an apartment assigned after reassignment, sterile quarters disguised as normal housing. Curtains drawn tight, lamps flickering intermittently though bulbs replaced yesterday. My pen scratches feverishly, yet sentences alter upon reread. Testimony resists permanence. Shadows lean across walls unnaturally, bending independent from light source. Electronics betray containment. Laptop screen pulses strange glyphs when idle, not Hebrew, not Arabic, symbols identical to those etched within stone corridors. Television hums static when powered off, displaying faint silhouettes seated silently, watching. Each night, devices whisper countdowns in languages unfamiliar yet understood instinctively. Shadows elongate across hallway, sprouting additional limbs, branching like trees of bone. They follow seconds behind movements, then surge ahead, anticipating gestures. Sometimes they freeze altogether, gazing back at me with absence of eyes. Darkness here, no longer absence, but presence too patient, too knowing. Footsteps echo outside apartment nightly, heavy, deliberate, far exceeding weight of man. Floorboards tremble beneath cadence. When door opened once, hallway lay empty, yet dust displaced in precise boot prints, extending into infinity. Neighbors never complain. Perhaps they do not hear. Perhaps they already erased. My watch refuses consistency. Hands spin backward at dawn, forward at dusk. Once it displayed 2 times simultaneously, overlapping minutes dissolving into unreadable blur. Shadows cast upon wall disagree entirely, stretching toward corners where no light exists. Time fractured again, reminding me desert never released its grip. I whisper truth silently, fearing distortion aloud. Yet silence answers back. Breathing thickens, vibrating faint hum reminiscent of entity's resonance. Sometimes I sense it within chest, inhaling alongside me. Its patience infinite, its observation constant. I realize destruction unnecessary, waiting suffices. Humanity unravels willingly. Baruch telephoned once. His laughter sounded empty, mechanical. He swore we never entered facility, insisted memory blank. Yet background echoed faint humming identical to mine. Suppression works, yet fractures leak subtly. Each survivor carries shard of silence. Together we form chorus of denial, orchestrated beautifully. I record final words now, though language resists. I sense presence leaning behind, shadow heavier, breath cooler. Electronics flicker symbols again, countdown approaching end. I accept inevitability. The entity never needed to conquer. It waits patiently, watching us dismantle ourselves willingly, efficiently, inevitably.